Hi guys, and welcome to my channel. So I just want to apologise about the delay in this video. I did fully intend to record it the day after I'd posted the welcome video, but that day I went out with some friends, had a bit too much to drink, and well, everything was gone. Phone, wallet, headphones, so I had to wait for all of that to be replaced. So the lesson here, don't drink. And then once everything had got replaced, other stuff was going on and it all kind of delayed everything. So I really am sorry for the delay in that. Thank you for sticking with me, and hopefully there won't be as long a delay ever again. But I did warn you, I'm crap at schedules, so you can't say you didn't know.
And I can't wait so we can break apart.
So before we start, I just want to put a bit of a disclaimer out there. I mean, no disrespect to any of the people mentioned in this video. This is information that I have gathered online from multiple sources and compiled into one video. So today we're going to be talking about the Ipswich Murders, which took place between the 30th of October and the 10th of December 2006 in Ipswich, Suffolk, which is in England. I personally live in Ipswich, so I do remember this case very vividly, so it's very, very close to home. That's why I wanted this to be the first video that I did. I remember there was a lot of fear around the town and the surrounding villages. My parents being quite nervous about it. My dad didn't like my mum going out at night. It was a horrible time, and it's not something that anyone had ever expected in Ipswich. Ipswich wasn't too well known for crime before this. It wasn't a case that nothing ever happened, but there wasn't any major national cases or anything like that. Ipswich was, however, known for its red light district. There was believed to be over 100 girls working as sex workers at that time, and on the evening of the 30th of October 2006, 19-year-old Tanya Nicol went missing.
She had literally disappeared off the face of the earth. Her phone records showed us a very flat line from the 1st of November, no incoming or outgoing movement of data at all.
Tanya had been working as a sex worker to fund her addictions to heroin and cocaine. She had left home at 16 years old, was living in a hostel. Her mum didn't know that she was working on the streets. She thought she was working at a bar or a similar type of venue. Obviously, the hours being generally late at night, it would tie in with the work that she was doing, so it was her cover story. Following Tanya's disappearance, 25-year-old Gemma Adams went missing on the 15th of November 2006.
It was then that we really started worrying. Are they still alive in a room somewhere, you know, or have Tanya and Gemma done this to a dealer and both of them are gone? You just don't really know when you're involved with drugs what the true reason is.
Gemma had become addicted to heroin as a teenager and was also working as a sex worker in order to fund her addiction. Gemma's partner was also a heroin user and was aware that she was working on the streets. However, her family were not aware of this. So now, in the space of 2 weeks, there have been reports of 2 women going missing. Both young women, both working on the streets, both had drug addictions, both went missing from the Ipswich red light district. There was a lot of similarities between them, but there was nothing that was definite to link the cases. On the morning of the 2nd of December, reports had come in that a local body of water called Belstead Brook had began overflowing. There had been a lot of heavy rainfall at the time, so this was just put down to that. So local water bailiff Trevor Saunders decided to have a look and see if there was a blockage or something like that, to see if he could stop the overflow.
Noticed what I thought at first was a dummy, a mannequin. So got down into the water to get it out.
After he went to try and move the mannequin, he realised that actually it was a body.
When I got down to her, that's when I realised that no, it weren't a dummy, it was a real body. And immediately thought to myself that I found one of the missing girls.
The body had been found naked and was laying in the brook. and the body was later identified as 25-year-old Gemma Adams. Police were obviously called to the scene and recovered the body. Because it had been in running water, there was a very slim chance of getting much DNA, fibres, anything like that from the body.
The fact that he had placed the bodies in water so as to destroy any forensic evidence suggested to me this was a very, what criminologists would describe as organised killer. By organised, I mean that he's very carefully thought through how he's crucially going to avoid being detected from the police.
On the 8th of December, police were still investigating around Belstead Brook, but they weren't getting anything. Just as they were about to call the search off, a diver made a discovery.
I remember receiving the phone call alerting me that a second body had been found. And when I asked where and was told Belstead Brook, immediately the alarm bells were ringing.
After Tanya's body was recovered, post-mortems on both hers and Gemma's bodies could not determine any cause of death, although there had been no evidence of sexual assault, despite both bodies being found naked. Because of the high level of prostitution in Ipswich, there was cameras all over the place. CCTV was covering near enough every corner of every street. So police sat through over 16,000 hours worth of CCTV footage to see if they could find anything that was going on with either of the girls. Police found that CCTV had managed to capture Tanya getting into a vehicle. However, due to the graininess of the camera, they were unable to see the registration plate. 2 days later, on the 10th of December, another body had been found in woodlands near Nacton. This was the body of 24-year-old mother of one, Annalie Alderton. This CCTV footage shows Annalie arriving at Ipswich after travelling from Harwich on the 3rd of December 2006. This was the last time that she was seen alive. Annalie was also a sex worker who was working in the red light district in Ipswich at the time.
She was naked, she'd been posed.
And she was found in a cruciform position. The killer had actually laid her out.
She was pristine. She looked like an angel.
Following the discovery of her body, her post-mortem confirmed that Annalie had died from asphyxiation, and it also confirmed that she was 3 months pregnant at the time of her murder.
We were all worried and obviously scared, but we all had to go to work anyway. You know, we had drug addictions, we had addictions to feed.
So on the 12th of December, 2 days later, police were called to a woodland near Levington, where a body had been found at the side of the road, just inside the woods.
I can remember looking at the screen and seeing what clearly appeared to be the dumped and crumpled body of a naked female.
This body was confirmed to be that of Annette Nichols, who was the oldest victim at age 29. Annette had been working as a sex worker for a number of years after becoming a drug addict in the early 2000s. Her post-mortem couldn't give a definite cause of death, but it was noted that her breathing had been hampered.
She was my best friend. Really, the most amazing person I've ever met in my life. You know, she changed my life for the better.
While police were looking around the area where Annette's body had been found, they came across an extremely unsettling discovery.
I put the camera onto the first body, and we decided as a crew that we should really search the rest of the wood. And as I swung the camera around, panned the camera around, and came into view on the screen was another body.
Paula Clennell had been found metres away from where Annette had been found. Again, she was found naked but not sexually assaulted, and her post-mortem confirmed that she had been killed by a compression to the throat. Paula was also a drug addict. She was also working in the red light district, and she had actually appeared on a news segment giving an interview about working on the streets.
Why have you decided to come out tonight?
Because I need the money.
Despite the dangers?
Well, that has made me a bit wary about getting into cars, you know.
But presumably you will do that tonight?
Well, Probably.
So in the space of 10 days, 5 missing women had been found dead. Tanya Nicol, Gemma Adams, Annalie Alderton, Annette Nichols and Paula Clennell. All of them found naked, all of them without any evidence of sexual assault, 3 on land, 2 in running water. Suffolk police quickly announced that there was a serial killer in Ipswich. It was announced that police believed the locations where the bodies had been found to have been depositing sites rather than where the girls had been killed. This was the biggest investigation that Suffolk police had ever had to deal with. The world's media was camping outside the police station to get information. Remember, at the time, all that anyone would talk about was the murders and who the killer was. There was so much distrust going on. I was 11 years old, just coming up to 12 years old at the time. And I just remember every time I would walk down fields, you'd be worried that you were going to find another body. It was just horrific. There had been over 10,000 calls made to police with information. As of the 18th of December, following a interview with a newspaper, 37-year-old supermarket worker Tom Stevens was arrested.
The police had to arrest Tom Stevens on that occasion because, if in effect, he said, I knew all of these 5 women, they've all been back to my house, I do not have an alibi for the nights that they went missing. In those circumstances, the police would have been bonkers not to have arrested somebody who's openly saying that.
So obviously police had taken Tom Stevens into custody, but they had no proper evidence. They just had the fact that he'd admitted to knowing all 5 girls. Forensics were looking at the bodies of Annalie Alderton, Annette Nichols and Paula Clennell, all of which had been found on land. They found tiny amounts of DNA on the 3 bodies, but they were too small to be able to test properly, so they used a technique known as polymerase chain reaction. I think I've pronounced that right. The idea of this technique is to copy the DNA enough to be able to conduct a sample that will be able to be tested accurately. Following the testing of the DNA, it all linked back to one person. And after checking the DNA against the National DNA Database, it all came back to match with Stephen Wright.
Steve Wright wasn't on our radar at that particular time. He was already in the system. He'd actually been stopped on an anniversary road check in respect of the disappearance of Tanya Nicol.
Stephen Wright was born on the 24th of April 1958 in Norfolk. He had had a very unhappy childhood. His mother had walked out on him just after his 8th birthday. He had no qualifications. He went from job to job. He wasn't able to settle down. He had 2 failed marriages. He had a mounting gambling debt. This led to him stealing, I believe, £80 from the cash register when he was working at a bar, which then led to him having his fingerprints taken, which was the reason he was on the database. Steve had moved to Ipswich a few weeks before Tanya had gone missing, and he moved to London Road, which is right at the heart of Ipswich's red light district. Police decided to put him under 24-hour observation before arresting him on the 19th of December at around 5 in the morning.
When he was arrested, he said no comment during the first 8 hours of interviews.
Even without his cooperation, police did have enough to charge him with the 5 murders through the DNA they had found on the 3 bodies. But this wasn't by any means watertight, so they needed to get more in order to guarantee a conviction. During the time that the murders were taking place, neighbours confirmed having seen Steve compulsively cleaning his car day and night, multiple times a day. But police still impounded the vehicle because this is where the girls would have most likely been picked up, and potentially where they had been taken for their bodies to be deposited in the locations that they were found. So forensics got to work trying to lift tiny fibres, hoping to match them to fibres that were found on the bodies. and they were successful. Fake fur fibre that was found on Annette's body was matched to 2 fake hair fibres that were found in the footwell of Steve's car. They also found tiny flakes of blood from tape-ins on the rear seat. When they put together to create a droplet, it matched the blood of Paula Clennell. They also put Stephen Wright's fluorescent jacket under microscopic examination, and they found further evidence of Paula and Annette's blood on there. So police now had compelling evidence for Steve having killed Annalie Alderton, Annette Nichols and Paula Clennell. But the murders of Gemma Adams and Tanya Nicol, because they had been deposited in water, they didn't have enough to be able to convince the jury beyond reasonable doubt that he had been involved in them, so they went back to the CCTV. Now they knew that his car was a Ford Mondeo. They knew what car that they were looking for. So while searching through the CCTV again, they found that Steve's car was seen leaving Ipswich on the night that Gemma Adams had gone missing. Earlier on in the video I mentioned that Tanya had been seen getting into a car on the night of her disappearance. This was also confirmed to be Steve's car, although this wasn't sufficient enough to say that he had killed them. Puts her in his vehicle on the night that she was murdered. Forensic went back to the bodies of Gemma and Tanya and collected over 2 kilograms of debris from their hair. They spent weeks going through this. They had to take every tiny fibre and work out what it was. This was a grueling task, but they did it. And after a couple of weeks, they found coloured fibres in Gemma's hair. There was a blue polyester fibre which matched the tracksuits that Steve Wright wore, and there were red acrylic fibres which matched fibres found in Steve's car and on his sofa in his living room. Our police had enough evidence to link Steve to Gemma's murder. Finally, they found a single black nylon fibre in Tanya's hair that matched the carpet of his Ford Mondeo. So police now had evidence linking Steve to all 5 murders. All 5 girls had been in his car, and at this point they charged him with the murder of all 5 girls. Steve Wright's trial began on the 16th of January 2008. For the first 15 days of the trial, the prosecution gave evidence for DNA, CCTV, all of which suggested that Steve had carried out these murders. When he took to the stand himself, Steve was very cold and callous in his descriptions. He openly admitted to having full sex with 4 of the 5 victims, with the exception of Tanya Nicol.
I thought Steve Wright was particularly cruel in his description of Tanya Nicol. That seemed to me to be a revealing insight into the psychological process that he had gone through to objectify those young women, thus making it easier for him to kill them.
He said that he had picked her up in the wish to have sex with her, but because she had acne on her face at the time, he was put off by it. So he returned her to the red light district. However, this contradicted Steve Wright's previous discussion with the police when he had been stopped, where he implied he didn't know that he was in the red light district and he was only driving around at the early hours of the morning because he couldn't sleep.
Under the barrage of questions that came towards him, he literally could not maintain any control, to the extent that he started to say,
"No, I did not.
I can't answer that.
I couldn't say.
You might say that.
I don't know where the blood came from."
Steve's trial lasted for over a month. On the 21st of February 2008, after only 8 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a unanimous guilty verdict. Steve was sentenced to life imprisonment on a whole life tariff, which means he will die in prison. Steve has tried to appeal his sentence on the grounds that it's too harsh. 5 murders, 1 of the girls that he killed being pregnant. No. Obviously, his appeals are constantly turned down.
people want to see me cry, they can see me cry, you know, because this is real, this is what happened, you know, these people I knew, and I'm not going to not cry because of it, you know, they were my friends.
Mystery. No matter what her job was, what she'd done, she was still a human being, and a young one at that. So hopefully every year that will be in full colour, just to bring the rosiness back to her cheeks wherever she is now.
Information that you may not have known before. Please do leave a like on the video, and please leave a comment down below. Any suggestions on how to make the videos better, or case ideas or anything like that, please let me know. Also, please do subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and click the notification bell so that you can see when I upload, because as I say, schedules and me do not get on. Thanks for watching guys, stay safe, and I will see you soon.